Well, Charlie was one of the most unique and special people in the conservative movement today. What he was able to build, the people he was able to organize, was just so large and powerful. He was able to convince people to get involved in politics that might not have otherwise done so. When you look at what he did on these campuses and in these public events, thousands of people were showing up, not for a rock concert, not for a sporting event, but for American politics. He inspired all these kids to be involved in their country. This is unequivocally a good legacy. He was also a godly person. He spoke about his faith openly. He was unapologetic about his views. I think what's been said about Charlie having his hand on the or finger on the pulse of the MAGA base is true. But what's also true is that he was enormously influential in that when an issue was emerging, when something was happening and people were sorting out their own views on it, how should I feel about this? Charlie was one of the first people they turned to see where's Charlie going to be on this issue, and how's he processing it, how's he analyzing it, and how does he think the young conservative should view whatever the issue happened to be. So
I want his wife and the country to know that the last question he took, the last thing he talked about to people in Utah, thousands of people that wanted to come hear him, is that his message was one of love, of Jesus Christ, of his belief in prayer. And he talked about that from his heart, and you could feel it. And he's done that multiple times before. But I consider it an honor to be there. It makes me mad. I'm so mad that this happened in our backyard. It's an embarrassment. Now, I got to tell you, I used to be in Congress. I represented this area. We're better than this. But there's somebody out there who's evil, absolute, total, complete evil. And they need to be taken down. Our law enforcement, I love them. They got to do a better job. There is no communication. You have 100,000 students between BYU and the University of Utah. They say somebody's in custody, then they say, oh, well, it's not the shooter. Right now, police are still pouring in. It's almost 3 hours later. They got to communicate with us. Is there a shooter that's still out there? And if so, what are we going to do to catch this evil person and make sure that he receives justice? That's what we're feeling in this community right now. But his message of love of God, of Jesus Christ, is one that I hope is part of his lasting legacy.
All right, well, I'm sure you've heard by now, but Charlie Kirk, conservative activist, founder of Turning Point USA, shot today in an apparent assassination attempt at Utah Valley University while he was trying to give a talk and engage in free political debate, which I was told in school that the nation is supposed to respect and really be all about, has now passed away. He is dead at age 31. We did hear some conflicting reports just minutes ago that the situation might have been stabilizing in terms of his health, but unfortunately and tragically and horrifically, that is not the case now, according to official sources. You can see from Fox News, breaking, Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk has died at age 31 after being shot at a college event in Utah. President Trump confirms he leaves behind his wife and 2 children. Here is the official statement from the president, which I would like to say, I think given their close relationship and how hard Kirk dedicated himself and worked and truly believed in President Trump's movement and everything he was trying to do politically and even beyond politically in this country, this is likely the way Charlie would have wanted it to be done. But here's the announcement. Again, Trump, the first one here to break the news. The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, and now he is no longer with us. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you. And that's the really important thing to keep in your mind and in your prayers here tonight, is that Charlie doesn't just leave behind a legacy that's based on politics or ideas. He obviously does. He leaves behind a very successful political organization, millions of people he touched through, the hearts and minds and what he was saying, and even the political action, the organizations, the coalitions that he built throughout the years. And I think there's plenty of credit to be given for that. But even for those who disagreed with his politics or didn't like aspects of what he was saying or whatever it is, and you can clearly see some of those sick and demented people are celebrating what's happening here today, that most importantly, there are 2 children and there is a mother and wife tonight that are without their father and without their husband at an extremely young age, especially for the children. And that's the saddest part of this story. And I just can't say enough how much my prayers, my condolences, my everything goes out to the Kirk family right now for such a horrific thing to happen in such a horrific way. And all we can do is pray. I don't know what else really to say beyond that. You can see too from Erica Kirk, the wife of Charlie Kirk. She posted a Bible verse just hours before he was shot at this Utah event from Psalm 46:1, saying that God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. So there you have it. And I cannot speak for Charlie Kirk's family, obviously. I can speak as one of the many, probably millions of conservatives in this country who, in some way, my life was altered or changed because of Charlie Kirk. And that is to say, look, I'll be completely honest. I was not prepared. Again, I don't really know what to say. I wasn't expecting to give some type of eulogy or whatever today. But I would like to thank him, and I'd like to thank all of those around him for, frankly, helping to get me even involved currently in what I'm doing, and the fact that I'm in front of this screen right now. I mean, I'll tell you a true story. So when I would say 16 or so years old, I kind of first was learning about Turning Point. That was at the point I started making some videos online, but it was kind of just a hobby. I really didn't know how serious I was about it. And I hear about this Turning Point event happening in DC over the summer. At the time, it was called TSAS, like the Teen Student Action Summit. And I just so clearly remember, begging my parents to be able to go. It was across the country. They're kind of skeptical. I'm like, please, 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 I want either people I knew through the internet. I wanted to meet them in real life, all this stuff. And because of Charlie and because of the organization he built, that became possible for me. And, I made friends in the movement. Like at the time I was in high school, I went to school in California, not really a lot of like-minded individuals around me. But, I heard, a lot of politicians speak. I got to see Trump speak for the first time. And I remember leaving that event with that first Turning Point event I went to, with the true motivation and the true belief, this is what I want to do. I want to be involved in the game, right? I want to either do politics or do media, something along those lines. And that event left me with the passion to be able to do it, right? Again, I was doing it before, but I came home, I'm like, I'm going to work hard. I really do believe in this. And, I don't know if I ever really put 2 and 2 together until now. But I look back and I say, that was made possible because of Charlie. I never knew him personally. I met him, I think, briefly one time at some event or something. But that's just a pure example, right? Of the millions of lives he touched, not just through directly what he was saying in Q&As or the people he directly interacted with, but you think about the organizations he built, the amount of people who were brought together, like me, for instance, brought together with other like-minded people through his organization. The reach that this man had on the world is truly, I think, understated. And the fact even that he was a target of this deranged, sick person on the other side shows that as well, right? They were threatened in some sense by the fact that this man genuinely did have an influence and he genuinely was moving the world. And I think a lot of people are familiar with Turning Point USA and kind of the campus aspect of it, and that's what he's known for. But I'd also, as someone who kind of closely followed the 2024 election and the way the campaign was playing out internally, right? And say that he deserves a lot of underrated credit for the very fact that turnout was high enough for Trump to ultimately win the election and save the country from the cliff it was riding off of. Not just because he was going around giving speeches. This is not talked about much. But the other organization he helped to build, not Turning Point USA, but Turning Point Action, right? That was like the political committee, basically put together this huge ground game of door knockers, phone bankers, etc. The entire goal of that too was to, forget trying to door knock on independent voters and trying to change minds. He's done plenty of that, don't get me wrong. But it created this very unprecedented style of Republican politics, which is to say, we have a lot of voters out there who are not super involved in politics, right? Low propensity voters. A lot of these white working class people in states like, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and those swing states. And thus far, the RNC never really understood this. They never really understood how turnout worked. If you go back to watch my videos in like 2023 after the midterms and going into 2024, I said this issue, right, is not a matter of Republicans not having the voters or the widespread support. It's an issue of turnout. The Democrats turn out to vote better than we do. And really, the organization that changed that was not the RNC. It was Turning Point Action, right? Because Charlie saw that. He basically converted most of the infrastructure that was being used to kind of do all this college campus stuff into political action. They door knocked, they barnstormed all across the Midwest. And frankly, that aspect of this game is something I'd attribute to maybe top three reasons in general that Trump won the election, right? Because that night, right, it really was too big to rig. It was overwhelming. You saw the turnout that you didn't get in 2022, et cetera, et cetera. And we won the popular vote. And we really realized, wow, there's more of us than there are of them. But again, Charlie in this story, such an underrated aspect of that, even further to the presidential transition. It's well documented, but he was at Mar-a-Lago. He's been a strong voice even in the party. Probably, I would argue, the top mainstream voice we had to also ensure that the MAGA movement and its ideals were represented truly through the GOP, right? He wasn't afraid to call out the people in the Republican Party who were not representing us correctly, right? And he was an instrumental factor in making sure the cabinet that I think, most people say is overall a pretty good one was constructed during that presidential period in Mar-a-Lago. So this is all just to say again, the guy has touched way more lives than people even realize. Even look at his, Turning Point Faith, right? Trying to get Christians more involved in politics, obviously something too that is very important. And I don't know what to say beyond that. Prayers for him, my condolences. He will be missed. What I will say is this. Again, I never knew the guy personally. But I do think what he wanted from all of us was to not cower, not run away, not be intimidated in these moments, and continue carrying the torch, right, of what he believed in and what ultimately a lot of us believe in, and not to act with fear and, just to continue to keep fighting, getting the good word out there, spreading the message, et cetera, right, and staying in the fight. Because ultimately, acts like this are done to dissuade us, right? To make people scared, to silence, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why, obviously, we cannot allow these sick, evil people to win. And we have a lot to say in our later videos about the sick, evil people in general, whether that's random left-wing activists out there or even mainstream figures like on MSNBC and the Democrat Party who are either trying to downplay the situation or de facto either blame Trump or even celebrate the situation. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that. But this video, I wanted to, just give my respects to Charlie and everything he built and, the way in which he's touched so many people's lives. So there you have it. That said, I don't know what else I can say, right? God bless, prayers, and we'll see you soon.